Chapter 15 of The Brand of Silence. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Roger Moline. The Brand of Silence by Harrington Strong. Chapter 15. A Moment of Violence. Sidney Prale turned around and walked back along the street to the park, Murk once more following at a short distance, as he had been ordered to do. Because he wanted to think of his predicament, Prale crossed into the park and began following one of the paths toward the south, making his way along it slowly, paying little attention to the persons he passed now and then. He crossed a drive and followed another path, and now he came to a secluded spot where the path was hidden from passers-by on the other walks and drives. Here the way ran through a tiny gulch, the sides of which were banked with bushes. Squirrels scampered and birds chattered at him, but Prale saw none of them. He was trying to explain to himself why Kate Gilbert had warned him to leave New York, why she had interested herself in his affairs at all, asking himself for the 1000th time what species of net it was in which he suddenly had found himself enmeshed, without knowing the reason for it. He had demanded information and it had not been given him. She had said nothing at all that gave him an inkling as to the nature of what seemed to be a plot against him. He had been as firm as he dared, he told himself. A man could not threaten a woman, could not use violence in an attempt to make her speak and reveal secrets. "We'll have to work from another corner," Sidney Prale told himself. "I can't threaten a woman, but I can pummel a man, and if I meet George Lerton again, I'm liable to forget what Jim Farland told me and use my own methods." He walked on through the tiny ravine. He came to a cross path, and a man lurched down it and against him. "Beg pardon," Prale murmured. "Wonder you wouldn't look where you're going," the other exclaimed. "Got an idea you own the whole park, or something like that? Men like you shouldn't be running around loose." "You ran into me, not I into you," Prale reminded him. As he spoke, he looked at the other closely. He saw a gigantic man who had the general appearance of a thug, whose chin was thrust forward aggressively, and whose hands were opening and closing as if he wished they were around Sidney Prale's throat. "I've a notion to smash you one," the fellow said, advancing toward Prale a bit. Prale's temper flamed at once. His own chin was shot forward and his own hands closed. "If that is the way you feel about it, start in," Prale said. "Perhaps I can teach you to act decently and keep a civil tongue in your head." The man before him made no comment. He simply launched himself forward like a thunderbolt. Sidney Prale darted quickly to one side and tossed his hat and stick on the ground. He did not have time to get off his coat. He could not even remove his gloves. The other, missing him in that first rush, turned and came back, swinging his fists. Prale did not dart aside now. He put himself on guard, braced himself against the side of the little gulch, and waited for the attack. They clashed, and Prale knew that he had a real fight on his hands, for the man who had attacked him was no mean antagonist. But after the first real clash, Prale had no fear of the outcome. The man was brutal, but he had no skill. He delivered blows that would have felled anyone, but they did not reach their objective. Then a second man crashed down through the brush and joined in the attack. Sidney Prale realized in that moment that the attack had been premeditated and the fight forced upon him purposely. It fed fuel to the flames of his wrath. He did not know whether this was the work of some of his unknown enemies or whether these thugs were mere robbers intent upon getting his wallet and watch. It made little difference to him which they were. With his back against the side of the gulch, he fought with what skill he could, trying to stand off both of them. The attack had come with a rush, and all this had occupied but a few seconds. Presently a human whirlwind appeared and took part in the battle. There was an angry roar from a human throat, a raucous curse, a rushing body, the thuds of swift, hard blows. Mr. Murk had reached the scene. The battle immediately became twofold. Murk fought as these thugs fought, disregarding the finer rules of combat, seeking only to put his opponent out, no matter by what means. Murk was not unaccustomed to fighting of that character, and he was doubly formidable now, for he was angry at the attack on Sidney Prale. Murk had been too far away to hear what had been said when the trouble started, but he had seen, and he guessed immediately that some of Sidney Prale's enemies were engaged in the attempt. Murk went after his opponent with determination, if not with skill. He fought him down the path, and there the fellow rallied from the surprise and rushed back. But Murk was not the sort to give ground. In a fight a man should stand up to another until one of them was whipped, Murk thought. He knew how to give blows, but not how to guard against them. He was marked, and marked well, before the battle was a minute old, but he had the satisfaction of seeing blood on the face of his antagonist. Foot to foot they stood and hammered each other, and gradually Murk began wearing the other man down. As for Sidney Prale, now that he had but the one thug against him, he fought with skill and cunning, knowing that the other was a bit the stronger, but realizing that he would be victor if he used reasonable care. His flare of anger had passed, and now he was fighting like a clever pugilist. He warded off the other's powerful blows, and now and then he slipped beneath a guard, or smashed his way through one and sent home a blow of his own. At the end of 3 minutes the thugs were getting much the worst of it. Gradually they were being fought back toward the nearest driveway. Back and back they went, but did not turn and run. Sidney Prale sensed that they were fighting for money, that they were being paid for this attack, and he realized that, but for the presence of Murk, he would have had no chance whatever, and probably would be a senseless, bleeding thing now. None of them knew that the fight had attracted attention, but it had. 2 women, coming around a curve in the path, had seen it, and had run back toward the nearest driveway, screeching. 2 mounted policemen hurried toward them, heard the story, and charged down the path. The 2 thugs made no effort to escape. They stopped fighting, and Prale and Murk ceased also, though the latter was eager to continue until a decision had been rendered. Murk had fought often where there was no interference, and he disliked to be bothered now, but he desisted at Prale's command. "Well, what's all this about?" one of the officers demanded. He did not address any of them particularly. "I was walking along the path and these men attacked me," Sidney Prale said. "My valet was a short distance behind and he came to my assistance. I never saw these fellows before." "Nothin' like it," one of the thugs snarled. "Me and my pal were walking along this path and met these men, and the one with the stick ordered us out of the way as if we were dogs. When we didn't move quick enough, they jumped into us." "That's a lie," Murk began. "You can settle this at the station," the officer replied. "All of you are coming along with us." Prale picked up his hat and stick, took off his torn gloves and threw them away, and motioned for Murk to walk at his side and to keep quiet. They went to the driveway and along it, the policemen watching the 4 of them closely, the thugs growling to each other and remarking that it was a fine day when honest workingmen could not stroll in Central Park without a dude and his valet trying to beat them up. There was a short wait when the station was reached, and then, at the lieutenant's command,